All right, I think we are still waiting on just a few more of our advisory committee members. Looks like it's just a little after 3. We'll get going with the meeting here in about a minute or two. Just give them a little more time to get in.
Hello, if you can hear me, this is Phil Chen calling in.
Hi, Phil. We can hear you.
Great.
And we're still waiting on just a couple more of our advisory committee members to get into the room. So we'll give it just another couple minutes and then we'll get started. All right, we're going to go ahead and get the meeting started. Just wanted to say good afternoon and welcome to the 7th Advisory Committee meeting for the Oregon Community Renewable Energy Grant Program, or what we like to call internally CREP, and you'll probably hear me use that term several times. I would like to thank the Advisory Committee and members of the public for attending today's meeting. My name is Jason Knaus, the Senior Incentives Program Analyst with the Oregon Department of Energy, focused on the CREP grant program, and I look forward to moderating today's meeting with you all. Also presenting today is going to be my partner in crime, Clay Decker. He's an incentives program analyst with the CREP program. I may have seen him just give you a quick wave there. And then as well, Christy Splitt with the Government Relations Coordinator with the Oregon Department of Energy Director's Office, and obviously a familiar face with our advisory committee. Go ahead and have Christy give everybody a wave there. Now that the CREP team is fully staffed, Christy is able to now focus on her core responsibilities and has handed these meetings off to the CREP team, but we know she'll still be joining us time and time again. Also, we have our now fully staffed CREP team in attendance today. If you guys could all just briefly turn your cameras on, that's going to include Patricia Phillips, who is handling our WebEx technical needs today. And we'll just go ahead and have everybody on the team give a wave to the public and our advisory team. And before we begin, I'd like to briefly cover our meeting logistics, how this meeting will be facilitated today, and that will then be followed by a quick review of today's agenda. And so I just wanted to make note that today's meeting is being recorded and will be posted online for reference. Please feel free to use the chat to ask questions, and Odo staff will be monitoring the chat. Also, please use the raise hand functions to indicate interest in asking a question or making a comment. And we have set aside time for public comments toward the end of this meeting. And just in case there are any questions on how to use WebEx to participate, I'll go ahead and just give a few seconds for some hand raises, and I'm sure Patricia and the team will be able to help you out with that. We'll just give that a moment before we move on. Okay. How this meeting is going to be facilitated is through our panelists and participants. Our panelists today are the advisory committee members and Odo staff, such as myself, Clay, and the team. And then participants, we have time reserved, as I said earlier, at the end of the agenda for public comment. And you'll be able to send questions via the chat as well throughout this meeting. We do like to enter all of our meetings under our community agreements. These are designed to foster inclusive and a respectful meeting today. And those include, please be present and ready to learn, be respectful to others. Learning often happens outside of our comfort zones. And listening to learn and not always to respond. We also just want to thank you in advance for being flexible and patient if we wind up having any technology changes, needs, or challenges. And if you do need anything during this meeting, please ask for it. As I said before, Patricia is in the chat to be able to help support you with that. And in today's meeting, we're starting off with this welcome, and then briefly we're going to move into our CREP team updates, and we'll be starting with Clay. And following the CREP updates, we will have Christy presenting on CREP in the 2023 legislative session. Following that presentation, we're going to have a discussion with our advisory committee members on CREP outreach plans and support. I do want to give advance notice that during that time, we will be turning the presentation off. I would like the advisory committee members to go ahead and turn your cameras on so that we can try to do it a little differently, maybe have a little bit more of a like in-person intimate discussion. And then once that concludes, we will then bring the presentation back on and move into our public comment period. And without further ado, we'll get into our first agenda item with CREP team updates, and I'm going to hand it on over to Clay.
All right, thanks, Jason. Hello, everybody. Just to set the stage, Jason has tossed up the map that shows the project locations from the 68 applications that were submitted in round one. And next slide, please. Just wanted to get a look there. Now, this map shows the project locations and the names of the 21 awardees. I have just put a link in the chat to a summary of the awardee projects. It's on our webpage. If you're just going to the CREP, the Community Renewable Energy Grants Program webpage, that link is always up there on the upper right-hand side. But there's a link now in the chat for that as well. So Jason and I held introductory meetings with the awardees and their project teams. And we had those meetings so we could update or get updated information and confirm the project details, since it had been a while, since the applications were submitted to when they were notified of selection. And so we were able to get caught up with their projects and discuss schedules, discuss the performance agreements. It was really great to learn more details about each project and to meet the teams and everybody. And we left those meetings with everybody pretty excited to get started. And I'm going to toss it back to Jason now, and he'll give us some more details about getting things started.
Awesome. Thank you, Clay. I appreciate that. And yeah, as Clay mentioned, our what we were calling our pre-agreement meetings, those were to help us get prepared to move into the next phase of the first round process, and that is into the performance agreement phase. And currently, the first round awardee performance agreements are in the final stages of internal language review. We do expect to have them back very soon in order to prepare each awardee's agreement. We are thrilled to announce kind of some final figures here. And in the first round, we had 8 planning projects that were awarded just over $600,000 in projected grant funds. These included 3 renewable energy projects with resilience components and 5 renewable energy only projects. In addition, we had 13 construction development projects, which were awarded just over $11 million in projected grant funds. These included 9 projects with resilient components and 4 renewable energy projects. And as we're moving in from round 1, moving into program's second round, we have learned many lessons that help us to improve the program processes and support the applicants. 3 of the key lessons have been improving the application portal and the applications themselves, as well as learning just how important the priority scoring opportunities are in these applications. The priority scoring oftentimes were a clear difference maker on many of the first round's awarded projects. And improving the competitive review process by providing better access to application materials for our reviewers, including including updating instructions for the review criteria as we move into round 2. Like in round 1, CREP's second funding round will total $12 million across 4 opportunity announcements. In addition to the lessons that we learned across the program, we are working to update and improve the applicant experience with more in-depth user and resource guides. We have also made several revisions to the application itself, including better instructions across sections and questions for each application type. We also continue to initiate outreach efforts to key groups and stakeholders across Oregon, and we do look forward to discussing this in more detail with the advisory committee a little bit later on in this meeting. Initially, we had planned to open the second round during mid to late fall of this year, and like the performance agreements, the next round's opportunity announcements are still under internal review, but we also expect to have them back very soon. So with that said, tentatively, our updated draft schedule for round 2 is as follows. We are looking at trying to have the application open by early January. We would then be looking at having the application closing in late January, but more than likely early February if this timeline works out very soon. And that is a shorter application period than round 1. And then we'd be looking at our review processes taking place beginning in February and running through early, maybe mid-April. And those review processes include the completion and eligibility review of all applications, our competitive review process, and our technical feasibility reviews. And then at that point, we'd be moving round 2 into the director's award process and the final selections. And we'd be looking at anticipating that at this time in about mid to late April, maybe even early May, depending on when we're able to open the application. This schedule is still subject to change, but we do hope to have round 2 open very soon. And on that note, I just wanted to say that as a new program, each step of the process is a first-time experience. We don't always know the exact time frame each step is going to take until that step has reached its completion. However, we continue to learn and apply each of those lessons, and we do appreciate and thank everyone for their continued patience as we move forward to improve the program. And with that, on our short presentation today for CREP, just want to ask if anyone from the advisory committee has any questions for Clay, myself, or the team. We'll go ahead and give a little bit of time for that. And it is a little bit difficult for me to see if there are hands raised on the screen, so I'll ask Patricia to maybe give me a comment to make sure I don't miss someone. And if anybody, feel free to go ahead and speak up if you do have a question for us. If not, we'll give that just a moment.
I don't see any hands raised or anything in the chat.
Okay, and I did want to remind, I didn't say this before, but advisory committee members, you should have the ability to unmute yourself if you are having a sound problem.
Hey, this is Alessandra. I just have a really simple question for you, Jason. If there's a way, let's say that like from the learnings that you all have around like better access to materials for reviewers, what's a good way to for us committee members to like stay up to date with some of those improvements? And even let's say like if there's some funding that would be good for people who are applying for grants, for them to know that there's other funding to help with their projects. Is there a way to kind of reach out? Like Jason, would you be the person that I would reach out to be like, hey, this might be a good resource for folks to put on the website?
Yeah, absolutely. Myself or Clay, we really are in that capacity. We really are your two-person team there. So if that's what the question was, yes, you would definitely want to reach out to myself and or Clay. We would be able to help with that as well. And you were always looking to be able to put more and more resources up for the website, or even help applicants by answering questions on email to support them. So that'd be wonderful.
Great. No, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. And, you know, it also is worth noting as well, for any of the other members out there, that as resources or ideas come in, you always have access to reach us via our program's email. And I'll ask Patricia to go ahead and put that into the chat right now so everybody has that.
I just put it in, but I think I might have put a dot that shouldn't have been there. So Patricia can correct me.
Thank you, Christy. Well, I'll tell you, without further ado, we just heard Christy come in. We'll go ahead and move into our next agenda item with Christy for CREP in the 2023 legislative session.
Great. Well, thanks so much for having me today. For anybody who noticed, I changed my clothes. I was dressed for pajama day at my kid's school and thought I should be more professional. But anyway, so then I thought of the fact that I changed in a meeting. It felt funny. Anyway, here to amuse you all. So the 2023 legislative session starts next month, technically on January 17th, although I'm sure that anybody on the call that does work in the Capitol knows it feels like it's already started. So we are really busy. And I just kind of wanted to give a little background on kind of where our program is when it comes to the legislative session. And one thing to know that we definitely know for sure is that the program was funded through mid-2025. The money for the second half of the 4 years that our program is slated to be in statute, at least is funded so far. Actually, there's not a sunset in statute for the program, but it's funded for essentially 2 biennium. And it was funded for 25 for the first biennium, which is the 2-year budget cycle that the state of Oregon follows. And then there was 25 for the second biennium. We as an agency have a fund, and all $50 million was put in that fund at the agency. The only thing we don't have is permission to spend the second 25 million. And that permission will need to come from the legislature during the legislative session. So that is one thing we know. What we don't know, are there policy changes that we or stakeholders want to make to this statute that informs the program? And this is a topic that we've been talking about internally and with some stakeholders, including some of our first grant recipients that have some ideas, and we're vetting those and seeing if any of those can move forward. We do have a vehicle that's like legislative speak for a bill that could work as a place to put changes to the statute potentially. And if any of those I kind of have this under the how to help, but if any of these changes start to move forward, we'll make sure we email the advisory committee. For those who don't know, our advisory committee is kind of set up like a board for the entire life of the program. And so we take that seriously and always want to get advice from our advisory committee. And, you know, we think in terms of like, we want to ask for advice as much as we can on this program because we have a lot to learn from the experts and community members that serve on the advisory committee. So just know we'll keep you posted on that front, but that's a possibility. We also don't know when we will be able to start the program or restart the program after session. So will we have to wait? Sometimes at the end of session, we have to kind of wait to get the money, but we already have the money. So does that mean that we'll be able to kind of open really as soon as our budget bill passes and is signed into law, or will we have to wait? So we'll definitely keep folks posted on when we're able to open for what will be round 3 of our application process. And then finally, something that we don't know either is if the Community Renewable Energy Program will be in the Oregon Department of Energy base budget. Kind of speaking legislative speak here, but if something is in the governor's recommended budget, that is where kind of things start in the legislative session. It's usually a little bit easier of a path to get it through. And it also, I would also say that it means that we don't have to, or advocates don't have to like kind of fight for it. There's policy option packages or budget items that are kind of add-ons to the base budget that different agencies are working on, and those are a little bit more of an uncertain situation. We don't expect that this will be the case, but just wanted to like let folks know we're not for sure whether the governor's recommended budget will include the program, although we certainly expect it to. So I just can't say for sure at this point. So just heads up on that front, but just know that I would be pretty surprised if it wasn't, but just wanted to be open about that with folks that track the legislature and care about the program and how it moves forward. I mentioned already us asking you for advice if there's any policy changes or giving you a heads up just about progress on session. And then the final way is that most likely supporting our budget will be a way to support the program. So as things move forward, that would be the way if you want to make sure the program continues with the full funding of $25 million that we'll have for the second biennium. So again, this is kind of where we are right now. The governor's transition just means that there's a longer wait for the governor's recommended budget to come out. So I see some chat just about sharing the slides, but if anybody has any questions on the legislative side, feel free to let me know. I was looking at the chat and closed my window, but I'm okay. So you can come off mute, advisory committee members, if there's anything you want to ask about or share. Great. Okay. Folks are welcome to ask. I'll keep an eye on the chat too. And then if anybody wants to reach out to me about this at any point, feel free to email me. I'm just at christy.split@energy.oregon.gov. I'm happy to get back to you, and just know that we'll be, for obvious reasons, keeping really close tabs on this, but feeling like it's really just sort of a pro forma issue that we need that permission to spend the money, and hoping that that's the case.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you, Christy. I do want to, before we move into our next session with our discussion with our advisory committee, I just wanted to give some advance notice regarding the public comment request to ensure that we have adequate time for public comments. I would ask right now if you would use the raise hand function to indicate interest in asking a question or making a comment. This is not to make that comment right now, but just to give us the ability to ascertain how many there could be and make sure that we allot plenty of time for that at the end of today's meeting. So I will just give a couple of moments if members of the public want to give us a heads up. And also wanted to say that inside of WebEx, if you wanted to do a raise hand to let us know that, you would enter *3. And I hope I'm getting the instructions from Patricia correct. Okay, well, and you can continue to do that as we move into the next round, and I'm sure Patricia will update me in our chat if there are going to be some extended questions. And for now, I would like, as we move forward, Would like the advisory committee members, if you would please go ahead and turn your cameras on. As I forewarned earlier, would like to be able to have a different kind of an interaction today, a little bit more maybe like an in-person discussion as best we can with the technology. And I am going to go ahead and turn off the presentation momentarily during that discussion period. And then we'll come back to the presentation after the discussion.
And thanks everyone for like honoring this, this was my idea. So let's see how it goes. I was like, we've had a lot of times where we haven't gotten a lot of conversation going with this crew. We really, really want to hear from you. So thank you for trying this, and let's see what great ideas you all have and good questions you have. So thanks.
Absolutely. And thank you all. And just real quick before we get going, for the public audience on today's call, I just wanted to share two of the main responsibilities of the advisory committee is that they provide the program or that they provide to the program is one is supporting statewide community outreach efforts to help inform potential applicants about the grants, and another is supporting each round's application review process by recommending and or serving on the external application review committee, or what we call our competitive evaluation committee. And in advance of today's meeting, we sent the committee members a request to help identify and plan additional outreach initiatives, including how we can support and or lead those efforts. And finally, to ask their recommendations for external reviewers for the upcoming second round of the opportunity announcements. So to start today's discussion, I think we sent some emails with some preparing some advanced questions for this. But would like to ask the committee members, are there any groups or organizations of potential applicants that were missed with round one's outreach efforts? And if so, let us know and we can move into that.
Do we have the list available to share with people of who we did the webinars with? I could kind of rattle off what I remember.
Clay might have that list in front, but your microphone is off, Clay.
I can, while you're seeing what we have, I can just kind of, since we're asking folks for feedback on kind of what we missed, I can at least share kind of what we did for round one and are kind of trying to build off of. We did webinars with the Association of Oregon Counties, the League of Oregon Cities. We did webinars with ACWA, which is like Association of Clean Water Agencies, I think definitely one of the better acronyms in the state. We also did one with the community colleges and the Special Districts Association of Oregon that include like a lot of different types of kind of public bodies that don't fit in those buckets, if you will, that I already named. And then for round two, we did some work with K-12 public schools. So we've had two webinars, same webinar offered twice, had about 75 people join those, which is pretty cool. We had great turnout for the webinars that we did for round one. And we kind of consider this outreach to be sort of low-hanging fruit outreach, and then planned on doing a lot of work that we're going to talk about today to kind of dig deeper for round 3 and 4. So any ideas of, and thanks so much, Clay, for putting in there what I missed too. But yeah, if you want to look at that list and see like who else would be good for us to reach out to and spread the word to, we'd love to hear it. I'll be quiet now.
Excuse me, this is Mark Brady from Business Oregon. I just had a few thoughts that I'll throw out there. The list you sent, it seems like you covered quite a bit, but one thing that I was thinking about that's not really covered in that list is the companies who might have technologies that these communities could deploy in these projects that the funds can support. And so the two key groups that I could think of that you could target to kind of reach that audience would be Virtue Lab and the Northwest Environmental Business Council. Members or companies affiliated with both of those groups, a lot of them have technologies that might be able to be used in these projects. And then the other area I thought of is our agency has regional staff based around the state, and their job is to know their communities and both the businesses and the public entities in their communities, and they often know about projects that people want to do. And so they'd be a good group, I think, to be aware of so they can spread the word in their communities. And similarly, although this one is probably not, it's not the best timing for it, but the last one would be Regional Solutions. I don't know if you all have talked to them, but I know with the transition, that's kind of probably a little bit messy right now. So those are my thoughts. And if you need connections, I mean, I can help you with the regional folks on our team, obviously, and I can connect you with Virtue Lab and NEBC if you need that.
Well, thank you, Mark. I appreciate that.
I don't know if there's a coordinating entity, but the emergency managers in each county would be a good place to. There needs to be some outreach around energy anyway for the resiliency side of things, but there's 36 counties, so there's managers scattered around the state, and they may be a good conduit for projects that they've been thinking about.
Thanks. Thank you, Les.
Hey, this is Alessandra. I was thinking about also reaching out to foundations that fund social justice organizations or grassroots organizations, kind of like Seeding Justice or Northwest Health Foundation, Oregon Community Foundation. Just thinking about some of those foundations that could send that information out so that community-based organizations could also be aware of this funding.
Excellent. Thank you, Alessandra.
I'm not sure if there's probably some organization of our libraries. I know that in a lot of our communities, our libraries are kind of this de facto gathering space for short or long duration catastrophe events.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about non-webinar formats. Maybe going to communities and hosting open grant information sessions where any of those kinds of entities could show up. So you get more of like a, instead of talking to all the school people from across the state at once over their screen, you could you could be talking to schools, and you could talk to an emergency manager, and you could be talking to a library, all at the same time, just kind of in a community fashion. And one of the benefits of doing that, I can imagine, is that sometimes there's dots that need to be connected. For a resilience project, I mean, you need one of the proposals I saw come forward here in Deschutes County was the fairgrounds with the support of the emergency manager. But, they just happened to be talking. And if they all showed up for a local grant workshop, it actually might help to cultivate some of those connections that need to happen.
Excellent, Phil. I think Christy might actually have some things to respond to with that one that we had actually been discussing yesterday that she's going to talk about.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just want to flag two just things. One's just one of those things that happens, but we were hiring for an outreach position to do outreach on all of our incentive programs, which includes CRAP, but because, it makes sense to me that if you're going out to talk to a bunch of people in one community, you can mention different funding opportunities that might apply, right? So the person that was hired for that position on the day they were supposed to show up for their first day decided not to start working with us. So it was a real major, I'm still not recovered from the whole thing. I'm sure they would have been wonderful, but wherever he is. But that was kind of one of the things that we imagined that person doing. And that position, I think, is open right now. So we're hoping we'll get another awesome person through the process and have more ability to do that. We're also going to have a community navigator position. This was an idea that came from the environmental justice community. We actually did some outreach to a bunch of different groups to get ideas ahead of the legislative session. And this is an idea that came from Lake County Resources Institute, or wait, that's not right, initiative, wherever the I is. But they suggested that we have somebody whose job it is to just help communities apply for energy funds. So you can see that that role would also be another one that could give us capacity to do that. So we're definitely working on having that capacity. The other piece is something that folks might remember me pitching you on a while ago. And we're planning on doing it when we have ideally some space in the new year, when we can't open up round 3, but are kind of waiting for round 3 to open. And so the idea that we had, and I'd be curious if folks think it's a good idea. I'd also be curious, well, I'll ask my second question after I say the idea. But the idea was to have community-based organizations in a given community kind of organize those meetings, use their existing relationships, because we don't know exactly who to get to show up at these conversations. And they see an email from Christy Split, who knows, who cares, right? But if they see an email from somebody they know really well, they're more likely to show up, of course. And so we had talked before about doing like stipends for organization, or like contracts, grants to organizations that would be willing to kind of host these types of meetings, exactly what Phil's talking about, or Commissioner Chang, sorry. Just seeing your name is Phil, but exactly that point of like, but having the right people host it, right? And but us compensating them because community-based organizations are so busy and stretched thin. So just curious if folks think that's a good idea, and then if they think it's a good idea or not, like what kind of money you think a community-based organization, like how much resource would they need to do that kind of work, so that we can kind of work with our contracting and procurement type teams at our agency to see if it's possible for us to do.
Seems like a good idea. Most communities, especially rural communities, don't have enough capacity typically to be working on this in the first place. So yeah, I think it would depend on what kind of capacity the organization that you're working with already has. Are they hiring somebody to do this, or do they have somebody on staff that has capacity to take that on? So I don't know what an appropriate number would be, but I do think it's a good idea.
Me too. Yeah, and
I would also throw out, I don't know if this has been talked about before, but I don't know how much coordination you did with Energy Trust or Bonneville Environmental Foundation, who are already working with communities and providing capacity in the energy space. Because it seems like there's a synergy there. I know Energy Trust and BEF have both been kind of pipelines of renewables and resilience for a few years. So that seems like low-hanging fruit that could kind of build both organizations.
That's great. And we have Jenny Hall's kind of an ex officio member of this advisory committee and is on the line. But you're right. We've talked to BEF a little bit, but that's a really good idea.
I think that's a great idea. I don't have any resolution to offer in terms of what that funding requirement would be. And I also encourage you, you will be successful in hiring someone awesome. I know it. We'll just send you that vision, but also encourage you to kind of inventory where people already meet. There are so many meetings and everyone's scrambling. If there are standing city council meetings, those tend to get kind of a broad swath of folks that are movers and shakers at the community level. And maybe it's not as comprehensive as your traditional webinars, but at least to make that intro and give them like an a la carte overview of all of the things that they can follow up on.
One of the other benefits of doing these localized workshops would be media coverage. And I'm not sure how much media coverage CREP got in this last solicitation cycle, but you have a local group hosting a workshop, bringing people from the Oregon Department of Energy, and you're right, better to have local people who have some kind of connection to the topic do the invites, but then you all have to come to deliver expert information and details about the program. But that seems like the kind of thing that would get news stories, and then those news stories translate into 100 people in your community calling the school district and saying, hey, did you hear about this thing? And I got this idea, and that's how you get some of the magic to happen.
I agree with everything that's been said. This is Audrey from PGE, Portland General Electric. And yeah, I think if there was some inertia to help people talk about it, get excited about it, the people are stretched thin, even at like municipalities and organizations with more resources than some of the nonprofits are saying like, that's a great idea, PGE. We don't have the time, we don't have the bandwidth to do that. Sorry, we're going to pass. When we're trying to partner with some of these eligible entities, and it really is a lot of work for them to do and put together to be able to put together the resources to apply for this, and then like best/worst case scenario, they get the grant and then they actually have to do it and implement the project. It's a lot. So I think that intervener funding and stakeholder funding is something that's pretty typical and done a lot with the utilities. So I don't know if that's public with like the OPUC of what the going rate is for that intervener funding. But it definitely seems like something that is pretty standard practice with a lot of these community-based organizations and other stakeholders.
And do you think that another option based on that, everyone's bandwidth is low, and timeline even second round, moving into third round, maybe a way to be able to solicit some of that interest or be able to drive those types of efforts on the local level, to not necessarily send out canned webinars, recorded webinars of the program, but try maybe intern in the program, we can create sort of our video info sheet for the program somewhere in a 2 to 3 minute synopsis that can then be shared out to you guys, that can be shared out to stakeholders, that can be shared out to community groups, something that might both inform but could even drive additional interest in wanting to have us come out and do local presentations or online presentations live, anything to that effect.
I think that's a good idea. It's easy to share, and I'm just fast forwarding to the point where we're able to talk more with higher resolution about some of the successful projects, at least the successfully funded projects, that you could kind of highlight. This is how they approach community engagement. This not like there are some new components to this that some of the eligible entities are kind of scratching their heads, going, "How do we do this?" So maybe to be able to do kind of like a highlights, like best practices to share in those more newly emergent aspects of this funding program.
Yeah, or even like a template or something that's kind of replicable, like here's what a microgrid is. Here are the things that it can serve. Here's about how much it costs. Here's what it takes. The generation, the storage, the controls, and sort of like, because a lot of this is not like I do this 40 hours a week, but not everybody else does. And so if you are a small community-based organization who may really benefit from the resilience, but you're not a utility professional or an engineer or somebody who's really well versed in this, you might not even know where to start and to how to well, I'd love to have resilience, but what does that mean for us? And so if we could kind of like have like templated examples perhaps to help people get started, t-shirt sizing, small, medium, large, and these are the various pieces of it for what you're trying to achieve. I just don't know if that could help kind of get people over the initial hump of where it's very, it's a lot, it's big, it's intimidating, it's a lot of money. And so sort of like really helping to just take down the intimidation and some of the barriers in the first place to get started.
Excellent. Thank you. I do want to, we're coming up on about about 3:47 or so. And do want to be mindful of leaving some time for the public comment as well. But I also don't want to cut off this conversation. So first, I was going to ask that anybody on that subject matter, did anybody have anything else before we move on to a second question? Yes, sir.
One additional thought. I mean, in the showcasing of the grantees who from the first cycle, you could also be kind of seeding information in communities about the program. So you do stuff to get a big splash at the community level in a bunch of places around the state for the projects that were already funded. And then you make sure that as part of the package of information, you cast the net for the next projects and be very mindful that like we're looking for more projects. They don't have to be exactly like this one, but this is what the program is looking for. And yeah, when you pour money into some place, people pay attention. So it's an opportunity to capitalize on that attention to get other people interested.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I am just to make sure that we maintain a little bit of time. One of the other points we wanted to raise for this as we're moving into round two is obviously we're going to be opening up the external evaluating, the external review questionnaire portal to have new reviewers come in. And we wanted to take a moment and ask the committee if you had any recommendations for reviewers for round two. And this could also be something if you had somebody but wanted to just share that privately via email to the team as well. Just wanted to bring that to the attention if there was anyone or people that were specific. We'd love to find that information out as well.
And just as a reminder, we did have one member of the advisory committee serve last time. In our last meeting, you may remember Gail Malcolm had a lot of feedback on how that could be done better. So it was really helpful for us to have that connection of somebody from the advisory committee in that role for what it's worth. So we'll make sure you all get that information. And if you're interested and have capacity to serve, and as a reminder, we can actually hook you up with a gift card. And I think we compensate pretty decently for people who participate and need that as a way to make it pencil out for them. So. Which is very exciting, by the way, that we were able to compensate them. That's groundbreaking for us as an agency.
Question for you on that. I don't have any particular names right now at this moment, but were there any types of entities or expertise or constituencies that you didn't have in the first round that you'd like to have going forward?
I feel like Clay might be the best situated person to answer that because he might know the committee best. Did you feel like there were any specific gaps? Oh yeah, you can't. Oh, you can't talk.
Yeah, no, I can talk. No, I don't. Not off the top of my head. I sure don't. Yeah, it was a really great committee, and we had a wide swath of expertise and great participation. So yeah, I really don't.
Yeah, that's fine. I was just thinking a way to kind of focus my thinking. Well, my network is mostly on the technical or business side of things. So if there's people like that you feel like you're missing, let me know and I'll pull together some names.
Wonderful. Thanks, Mark. I do want to be mindful of time for public commentary, but I also wanted to just tell everybody thank you very much for doing this new style. Thank you, Christy, for suggesting this. It definitely feels more like a meeting when we're all communicating face to face. At this time, just to make sure we have time for public commentary, unless there is any pressing issue or comment that I may have missed, we'll go ahead and allow you all to turn your cameras back off. I'm going to turn the presentation back on, and we'll move into our next steps in our public commentary. And thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. And give me one moment for My technical difficulty here.
While you're pulling that up, I don't know that we have any hands up for people that wanted to give public comments or ask any questions from the public. I don't necessarily see any. Although, I mean, we want to make space for it, so we're happy to. But now's the time, if you've been waiting for your moment, to raise your hand and share any thoughts with us. And then back to you now that you've got your screen up.
Thank you. Yeah, and thank you, Christy. I was going to actually mention the same thing. I don't believe we have any public comments that are commentary or that have raised their hands to make comments. If they're we'll go ahead and still give it just a couple more minutes on that. And in the meantime, if anyone from the advisory committee or ODO team had anything, please feel free to share that. And just in the meantime, for those on this call, if you want to learn more about the Community Renewable Energy Program, grant program, you can go to www.oregon.gov/energy. And on the home page, as we have the arrow marked right there, just click that link and it'll take you into that page. And with all of the new updates coming in, it'd be a great time to sign up for the email subscription list and follow the CREP program for the latest information there. And with that, we'll just move into our next steps for the end of 2022 and early 2023. As we mentioned earlier, we're looking at doing the opening round 2, as well as moving forward on our existing outreach opportunities and taking advantage of the excellent suggestions that we had from our advisory committee today. And then we are also looking at having our next advisory committee meeting later on in first quarter of 2023. I would imagine that to be probably in the late February, maybe early March timeframe, to give us some time to move through the first phase of round 2. But at that meeting, I anticipate that we would be looking at applicant summaries for round 2, as well as a status report for the program. And then a little bit of follow-up on the CREP legislative rules or legislative language and changes that might be moving forward if there are some. And so with that, in these last few minutes, we'll just go ahead and open it up. If there is anyone from the public who has a comment or a question, please feel free. And we'll just go ahead and give it another moment. And I am being advised, if you're having technical difficulties on the call in, it is *3 to raise your hand and *6 to talk. And I think we that's going to conclude today's meeting. I want to once again thank the advisory committee members for their time today and for the discussion. We've received a lot of great information we can move forward on and ideas. And I also want to thank all the members of the public who took the time to join in on this meeting for the CREP program. And we look forward to announcing our next one in first quarter of 2023. And with that, thank you all and have a great day.